different levels.
Mild, severe.
When we meet a stranger, or even an individual we know, anyone at all, one common incident is that of misinterpreting them. But we too can be misinterpreted ourselves. As we have acknowledged, Asperger syndrome is invisible in the beginning, and people who have no idea about it can get the wrong impression about such individuals, which is very daunting and can be embarrassing depending on the situation. The main issues that those with autism and AS can find troublesome, or maybe just difficult, are facial expression, body language, and tone of voice. And this is probably due to their focus on minor detail, but at the same time their other sensitivities can have an effect, and that includes proximity between themselves and their environment. When we talk to someone we really appreciate, we don't think about this, but our tone of voice is affected. We might feel so excited and relaxed that our tone of voice shows it all because it sounds relaxed and sometimes bright. All this will show as well in our facial expressions and our body language, whereas in stressful situations, all these everyday symptoms will probably be much more tense and heavy. We can tell when someone's angry, for example. They'll look angry, they'll talk sharply. When someone's feeling miserable, they might slouch and their face will have fallen. Sometimes they might even mumble, mightn't they? But can we always tell how an individual is feeling? Are they thinking differently to how they appear, perhaps? None of us are telepathic, don't forget. We don't really know someone unless we can actually step into their shoes. If we look at an individual in a public environment, a shop, or on a bus, or anywhere at all, depending on the situation, they might, for example, be looking stern in our opinion, in which case we'll probably think that they are antisocial or just grumpy individuals. But how do we know that we are not misinterpreting them? We'd need to take a closer look without staring rudely and analyse that individual logically. Maybe in the end we might think that they just look tense because perhaps they don't like the environment around them, or possibly they just don't like a particular person within that environment. Not necessarily myself or yourself. It could be anyone around us. Maybe they think there's too much noise going on or too much light, and therefore much too dazzled to think about anything else. In which case, we've just misread the individual's facial expression and/or their body language. But even the individuals themselves can misread things too. They might think that we are scoffing at them when in fact we just look mystified by their actions. Also, people with AS and autism can be literalistic and won't always be able to tell whether someone is joking or being serious. And this can also be affected by the environment or possibly by something else. For example, if we were to say to them, "Put your thinking cap on," they might respond with, "I don't have a cap," which isn't funny at all. They have taken us literally, and there is absolutely nothing amusing or unusual in any of it. All we have to do is explain to them that it's just an expression meaning to start thinking and concentrate on something. Some of you have probably seen the film Rain Man, which is about an autistic person. There's one scene where a woman is showing Rain Man how to dance on a date, which leads to her kissing him in the end, by which point she asks him, "How did that feel?" And he responds with, "Wet." Imagine if you were sitting down close by watching that incident, or just walking past to go somewhere. You've never seen that man before, in which case, what would you think of him once he'd responded like that? Would you think, this is someone who is grumpy and hates dating? Would you react at all? It's best not to, no matter who the individual is. Because if we do, that individual might feel embarrassed at himself or herself. They might think they've made a silly, ridiculous mistake, which isn't the case at all. What if a person with AS or autism tried talking to you and thought you didn't look happy or friendly? How would you feel then if that theory wasn't the case at all? It would be a surprise, but we only need to say to them what we would say to anyone. Something like, "No, I'm fine, really. I'm just a bit curious about something." We probably didn't look curious to them in the first place, but it's always gold dust to know an individual's feelings in the end. Anyone can misunderstand a person or anything at all. Nobody's perfect. We just need to look before we leap and look harder before reaching conclusions. We must never assume that an individual is aggressive or unhappy unless there is evidence to prove otherwise. Facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice all go together, but just like everything else, they don't tell us everything about an individual. Our world is a very complex place, and vulnerable people are still suffering due to outside misinterpretations and ignorance.
Life Within Asperger Syndrome was presented and produced by Nath Trevett. If you have any questions, visit nathtrevett.com and post your feedback on the Asperger page. Thanks for listening.